So emergency savings, and the reason why I included this in this presentation is because the economy. We're facing high inflation right now. There's a lot of uncertainty about the economy, even though the government is telling us that we're not in a recession. All indicators point to a recession, which is basically, when during times of recession, when things get more difficult, right? Things get more expensive. Good jobs are harder to find. They're fewer and further between, and it can be very stressful for many people, especially if you're impacted by an income loss. So it's really important to have emergency savings right now. So if you do not already have emergency savings, I'm going to talk about how to build it. If you do have it, definitely consider, do you have enough? And do you need to bulk up your emergency savings and add more money to that account? And basically, like I mentioned earlier, your emergency savings is there to help you weather unplanned life circumstances. We can all name something unplanned that has happened, whether it is an unexpected flat tire, a water heater breaks, a leaky roof, you have to buy an emergency plane ticket, a car accident. You just never know. So the reason why emergency funds are so important is because you don't have to rely on credit and you don't have to take on new debt if you have that cash buffer. So step one is to determine your core living expenses, which I went over: housing, transportation, food, core utilities, medicine. And based on those basic living expenses, plan to save 3 to 6 months of those expenses. So a lot of people are like, what is this woman telling me to save 6 months of my income? That is crazy. There is a difference between saving 6 months of your total income and saving 6 months of your basic living expenses. During times of emergency, you're not going to be doing all the non-essential things, right? So this is really focusing on, if something were to happen today and I need to cover my core essential living expenses, what would that be? And that would be significantly less than what your overall monthly spending will look like, because there are a lot of things that we spend money on that are non-essential that we are able to cut back on. 3 to 6 months is the general guidance. If you are in a dual income household, it's a good idea to focus on starting with 3 months, because there are two incomes in the household. If you are single, 6 months. However, during times of uncertainty like this, I like to tell people that once you hit that 3 to 6 months mark, then take it a step further and aim to putting aside 9 to 12 months. And it's as simple as building your savings into your budget, right? So we talked about the $10,000 example. Every month you save $833 to save a $10,000 emergency fund by the end of the year. And what you do is you build that emergency savings into your budget. Every time you get paid, you're going to contribute the amount equals to $833 for that month. If, for example, you just can't afford that, then maybe instead of saving $10,000 in 12 months, you're saving it over 18 months. You're saving over 24 months, as long as you're building that line item into your budget and you're actually putting the money into the account. If while you're in the process of building your emergency savings, you have an emergency, you leverage the money for what it is for, right? So you save some money, take it out, use it for the emergency. That's why it's there. And then you just start over because it's already built into your budget. You start to replenish the account. People always ask me, where do I keep my emergency savings? Should I be investing in it? No, you do not want to invest your emergency savings because you do not want to have that money tied to a downturn in the market, being unable to offload a real estate investment. So keep it easily accessible and liquid. So high yield savings accounts, money market accounts, certificates of deposit, for example. And then avoid the temptation to spend your emergency fund on non-emergencies, right? So I always tell people, if you fall victim to temptation when you just have money sitting in your account, especially your emergency savings, then keep it a different bank. Don't get any checks. Don't get any debit card. You know that if you need the money, you can easily call the bank to do a couple day transfer, or you can drive to that banking location to get the cash, but avoid the temptation of having to spend that money. So, how many of you are confident about the emergency savings that you have in place right now? Or how many of you are motivated to go out and start building or replenishing or adding to your current emergency savings? Let me know in the comments. So I am confident. I love that. Okay. Definitely motivated. So someone said, this is a great question. Do you think you should be saving in an emergency fund when you are in debt? And I would say yes. Um, but you want to set a basic emergency fund, right? So your basic emergency will cost, on average, cost about $1,000 to $2,000. This is flat tire, car repair, water heater repair, emergency plane ticket. Those are the small things that are not associated to a complete loss of your income. These are things that just happen, that can throw off your budget. So I would definitely say focus on putting aside a $1,000 to $2,000 emergency savings, small emergency savings, while you're focusing on paying down your debt, especially if you have high interest debt. That way, if you have a flat tire, as opposed to buying a new tire on your credit card and adding on to the debt, you just tap into your little emergency fund. So you definitely can have emergency savings while you're paying off debt. The reason why you don't want to have too much cash while you're paying off debt, even though it's a good thing, is that sometimes if you have high interest debt, the cost of the interest is not worth the minimal interest you're earning on emergency savings. So it's better to focus on quickly paying down that debt. And then once that debt is gone, you accelerate rapidly ramping up your emergency savings. So I'm seeing more responses saying, I'm confident. I'm having issues putting enough into the fund due to the debts being paid. So if you're focusing on paying off debt right now, definitely have a small buffer put aside. So let's say you're trying to pay off a certain amount of debts and you're not sure if you can save for emergencies. I would say save what you can, but still have a line item in your budget. It might be $50, it might be $100, it might be $300. You may get a bonus, a refund, put it towards your emergency savings, or you can split it half and half, where half goes to emergency savings and half goes as extra payments towards your debt. But I certainly feel that it's important to have, even if it's just a little bit of cash put aside, um, when you're paying off debt. So great responses. Yes, so someone said exactly my sentiment. Even if it's $10 a week that you put aside, it is something. Thank you for sharing that, Leanne. Um, so yes, someone else said our emergency fund started with any $5 bill we got, put it in an envelope in my glove box. So I'll tell you something fun that I do and I share it. We in the Clever Girl Finance team, we have a Slack chat, and every week we share what our personal goals are. And one of my personal goals is to fill up my money box. And the way I fill up my money box is every time I go to the grocery store, which I go once a week, if I do not spend my entire grocery budget, I get the difference as cash back and I put it into that money fund. So there's little ways here and there that we can start to save emergency savings. Think about where you can cut back on. Are there things in your home that you can downsize and sell and get some money in? Can you get a part-time job? Can you start a low-cost side hustle? How can you get creative? And I do want to recognize that you get to a point where you can only cut back so much, right? People always say, cut back on your spending, cut back on your budget. But you get to a point where you've cut back everything you can possibly cut back, but it's not enough. Like you still need to pay your rent, pay your mortgage, pay for your insurance. You can't cut back anymore. So once you've gone to that point where you have cut back, right? The next area to focus on is how can I earn more? How can I bring more money in? We all have clothes with tags on in our closet. We have appliances in our kitchen. We have things in our garages, kids, strollers, cribs, clothes that are in great condition but are too small that we can sell this stuff and get in some cash, and put it towards savings, put it towards debt, side hustles, part-time jobs. Like all these things you can do for a short period of time to achieve your goals. It's about getting a little bit uncomfortable, knowing that most people won't do this, but you want to achieve your goal. So definitely think about that. Leanne said, my first year on Poshmark, I made $5,500. That's incredible. I went to pawn shops and bought real jewelry, cleaned it up and flipped it. So that's a great side hustle. I love that.